Indie games are great, aren't they? For me at least, they've been consistently the most fun, surprising, challenging and engaging games I've ever played. I always try and keep them on my radar, and there was one that I could not stop hearing about. Dave the Diver. And as luck would have it, in April 2024, not only did Dave come to the PlayStation, but he got dropped in their pass day one. Meaning that I can finally get my hands on an indie darling, and more importantly, plat it. So, with 44 trophies ahead of me, the question is, can I plat Dave the Diver? We start with Dave living his best life on a beautiful beach before being called out by an old friend, Cobra, who asks if he fancies flying out to him to eat at a luxury sushi bar. Dave, the 1%er, rushes out, but learns not to trust an obviously shady guy with an even more obviously shady name, as this snake has tricked Dave out here to talk business. What business, you may ask? Well, you see, this is the giant blue hole. Not the best or most unique name, I know, but it is unique in the fact that the terrain and ecology changes all the time, which means fish is plentiful and seemingly never ending. So what smarter thing to do than to open up a sushi bar right next to it? And not just that, but to go in business with a reclusive but nonetheless godlike chef, Bancho. So the deal is this. Dave, who is a world-class diver, will dive for all the ingredients, and Bancho, a world-class chef, will cook it up, whilst Cobra, being a world-class schemer, will, well, he'll also be there, I guess. Opening night doesn't exactly go well as an earthquake rocks the bar, destroying it, and giving us our first main objective, catch fish and raise the funds to repair the bar. So off we go, catching fish by day and serving the food that Bancho cooks up by night. After our first shift, we quickly see why my Hermes packages never arrive. It's all because of a giant squid, but we can't worry about that yet, so we have to keep on diving. We meet another resident the next day, Dr. Bacon, a man obsessed over a legend in these waters, a legend of a long lost civilization of sea people. He asked that while we dive, if we could look for proof of these ancients. Cobra, seeing another scheme, agrees in our behalf. We may be reluctant, but this new venture does come with an immediate benefit to us: upgrades. Bacon gives us our first upgrade for free, allowing us to dive deep enough to investigate the last known lead he has on these sea people, but also, and more importantly, giving us our very first trophy: better equipment. After having a close call with some pretty aggressive fish, Cobra goes full American and suggests that we get ourselves a gun. He calls up an old buddy, Duff, who will essentially act as our blacksmith for the game. We dive once again for some basic materials to craft our first gun and get our next trophy, Undersea Gunslinger. And that's not all, as with all the money we've made from selling sushi and giving back the wrong change to customers the last few nights, we managed to fix up the restaurant, netting us our next trophy, Bancho Sushi is back. This gets the attention of a very familiar face for Bancho, Yoshi, a blast from his past, who butted heads with him about his unique ideas for dishes, let's say. Bancho decides to settle this argument by asking that Yoshi actually try the dish he suggested all those years ago. She agrees, so we go diving for the ingredients. But before heading out to fight a whole ass shark, I enhance a couple of dishes, quickly getting me the Culinary Master trophy. After heading back into the water, we found the shark needed for the dish. I shot enough rounds into it to take down Fiddy himself and earned our next trophy, Angry Shark. We head back to Bancho's with the ingredients, serve Yoshi up that fried head, and watch as she has a whole ass Food Wars reaction to it. Now I'm in love with Bancho's food. Yoshi still says that we can't do this alone. She must have watched how slow poor Dave is serving food and suggests that we need to hire some new people. Luckily she can help with that, as recruiting is what she does. She puts in an ad for some new recruits and says to leave it with her. Now, you may not know it, but if you played Dave the Diver, you know I've been glossing over some residents that you meet and apps that you have in your phone. I'll be covering them as and when I need to bring them up, but one that I do need to mention now is an app called Cookster. This is essentially just Instagram, and we'll be aiming for the top ranking on this app by gaining more followers, researching more recipes, and blowing people's minds with great tasting food. So after impressing Yoshi, we've reached bronze ranking on Cookster, netting us the Influencer trophy. Diving deep enough the next day, we find an old statue of what appears to be a sea person, whilst also getting a glimpse of the giant squid again. We take it back to Bacon, who after analysing it finds that it has a large amount of unknown substances on it. He develops a radar to track where more of this substance can be found and tasks you with following the signal. We dive and follow the signal, but our progress is blocked by a rock slide. We chat to Cobra, who says that we could use a bomb to blow our way through. Now, I don't know what kind of dark web, black market Amazon service this man is using, but he says he thought ahead and has already ordered bombs for delivery. Trouble is, the delivery never arrived. I wonder why. So now we have to find materials for him to build a drone so that he can track his delivery. I don't know why Duff couldn't just 3D print us a bomb like he has with guns, but who am I to question his game logic? Anyways, returning to Banjo that night, Yoshi tells us that she already has a new recruit lined up, Kyoko, who we hired to take over Dave as the main server. Before testing her out on her first shift, I quickly researched a couple of new dishes, earning me the culinary researcher. The next day, disaster hits. We overload our pockets full of fish, weighing ourselves down so much that we couldn't escape a ferocious barracuda. We run out of air and die. Actually, we were rescued by Cobra, apparently, somehow. Doesn't matter. The important thing is we net ourselves our next trophy, saved Dave. I wish I could say I had planned this, but I hadn't checked the trophies beforehand, so this was just a happy little accident. Regardless of it being an accident or not, I am miffed. So we dive again and start taking out my frustration on some jellyfish. After giving them a death by 1,000 cuts, I get myself the next trophy, Mr. Melee. Now at peace once again with the ocean, I retrieve the materials for the drone and return them to Cobra, which coincides with me picking up my 100th item, getting me the scrap metal collector trophy. Now I must have misconstrued why Cobra actually needed materials for a drone, as the next day he says he's crafted a bomb, letting us finally move past that rock slide. So we return to the rock slide and blast our way through, finding an ancient sea people record chamber behind it. We investigate the mural and ancient text, even snapping ourselves a few pics as proof and finding another artifact, before returning to Bacon with all our newfound evidence. That night at Banjo's we get introduced to our first VIP guests. These are essentially just special guests that challenge Banjo to present an unforgettable dish for them. We have only 2 days to find the right ingredients for him, so we'll be keeping that in the back of our mind during the next couple of dives. Bacon returns the next day with good news and bad news. The good news is that artifact that I found the other day was a sick ass bracelet that I can equip to get some extra drip while I dip. The bad news is that the signal is coming from even deeper in the ocean, so we'll not only have to upgrade our suit even more, but also find a way to see in the dark. So we call up Duff, the builder of the headlamp. He says that he can help, but he has an even bigger problem. His precious waifu statue hasn't arrived. Again, I wonder why. Luckily he can track it, taking us to the sunken Amazon ship we saw be taken out earlier. Now, there's enough hentai out there to know that giant squids also love anime girls, so before we can get our hands on this figure, it's grabbed and taken deeper into the sunken ship. Duff, not deterred though, because it ain't him about to go into a giant squid's lair and fight it, demands that we go after it. He even offers to make us a gas cutter to help cut our way through the metal and into the ship. What a nice guy. Before that, however, let's take a quick detour. You see, every now and again on my dives I've been running into this dolphin and his pink partner who have been hunted by pirates. Now, whoever said violence never solved anything was clearly full of it, because once I started blasting, those poachers fled, finally saving these dolphins for good and earning our next trophy, new undersea friend. But enough about saving a shiny Pokemon, we've got an anime girl to save. Back to the wreck, and we cut our way in and come face to face with the giant squid that's been terrorising my Amazon delivery driver. We fail to sneak up on it and begin our first boss fight. And I'll just be straight up with you, I don't know if it was just me, but I struggled a lot during boss fights in this game. Sometimes the solution seemed really obvious but wouldn't work for me, only for me to die, get frustrated, look up how to beat the boss and find out it's the same obvious solution I tried and failed at. I can't explain it. Again, maybe it's just me, or it's the hitbox of the bosses, or I just got super unlucky, but I just did not have a fun time fighting these kaijus. Mini rant aside, we take down the squid and find not only our anime waifu figure, but a couple of actual sea people. Now before I can introduce myself though, the sea man scoops up the injured lady and flees. Back on the surface, we deliver our waifu to Duff to get our headlamp and call up Bancho to let him know that giant squid is on the menu tonight. Whilst hanging out at the bar that night, we tell Bacon everything we saw. He says that there could be even more of those sea people, maybe even a village of them. But that's a job for tomorrow, as tonight it's all about partying with a small group of friends we've already made. Waking up the next day rougher than a dog's ass, we have a run-in with a local prick and pretend activist, John Watson. As I say, I've been skipping over a lot of the locals that we meet until they become relevant. All you really need to know about our boy John here is that he's the Peter of the ocean, and he's picked a really bad day to mess with us, as Dave has a splitting headache from doing too many Jaeger bombs last night. We gun this annoying tit down before he can do any more damage to the local fish populace and our hangover, before gathering up some more fish and heading back to the bar. You see, tonight is the night that Bancho needs to show off his expertise to our first VIP client, and it goes perfectly. Well, I say that. Vincent may say and act like he enjoyed the food, but secretly he must hate us, because he rewards us with the ability to now serve a nice cold beer on tap. That sick pup does not realise the amount that we drank last night. Just the smell of tequila will set poor Dave off. And speaking of, it seems someone in the bar is already hitting the sauce pretty hard, as we meet a grown-up rowdy rough boy called Otto. Speaking with Otto, he reminisces on his past days as a fellow diver, and talks about an old dish his ma used to make. We agreed to find the ingredients to make it, thus giving us the ability to have a quick dive at night time for some nocturnal fish. With our hangover cured, we dive deeper, following the signals so deep in fact that we unlocked our next trophy, Deep Sea Diver. The signal takes us to the sea people we met earlier. Trouble is they don't speak a word of the Queens, and our Duolingo app isn't much help down here. Dr. Bacon has an idea though, we need a translator. We get a shopping list from the dock, go for a late night dip, fighting all the aggressive fish and earning our next trophy, Predator of the Blue Hole. The next day I get everything the dock needs. It'll take a little bit of time to work his Dexter's Lab magic on it, but before I know it he's handing me over my very own universal translator. We dive again and make first contact with Princess Ariel, and she's in a bad way. Her bodyguard, Swam, says that she needs some good old fashioned Resident Evil herbs, and to make them edible. Luckily the herbs aren't too far away, so we take them up to Bancho to whip it up into a nice, porridge? How are they going to eat that underwater? You know what? Never mind. We take the gruel back to Swam and the princess wolfs it down. But our girl Ramo here is a sneaky little benefit cheat, as she still pretends that she's so weak from the attack that we'll need to carry her all the way back to the village. Good guy Dave obliges, wears Ramo like a backpack and follows Salty Swam back to the village. But wouldn't you know it, another earthquake hits, creating a rock slide blocking further passage. Now needing to create a rock slide to clear a rock slide, we head back to the surface to craft better gloves? Okay, sure, whatever. Whilst Bacon is putting his doctorate to good use by figuring out how to prevent us from getting a boo-boo on our fingers, we head back to the bar and encounter a troubled young youth called Maki. Now Maki, before her JJK days, was a bit of a mute, and could only communicate from an angry finger puppet. Now all that would suggest that she needs counselling and a lot of therapy, but you'd be wrong. What she actually needs is her favourite sushi dish, so we start gathering the ingredients for her. And speaking of someone's favourite sushi dish, remember Otto? Well, I finally serve him up the dish he's been craving, which is so good that it turns back time. We wait 30 years for Otto to grow back up again. He thanks us for the food and asks that we meet him round the back. Now usually this doesn't end up well, but Dave's either naive or is a chancer, so we go meet Otto around the back where he shows us his Dragon's Den pitch, a fish farm. From now on, when we catch fish, we have a shot of stealing its eggs. Otto then takes those eggs, puts them in his farm for them to hatch and breed. We strong arm Otto to take 90% of his earnings, leave him on the farm to get to work, and go meet Bacon, who's crafted us a nice new pair of gloves. Now confident that we can't get any splinters, we return to some Acme giant pegs, pull a couple out and clear the way for us to finally reach the village. Before reaching the village, however, we're confronted with another kaiju. Now again, I do have my complaints about the boss fights in this game, but this wolf eel was an absolute breeze. It literally wiggles its weak spot in your face, just begging you to shoot it. The eel goes down quick and we finally make it back to the village. Now, as you imagine, we aren't exactly welcomed with open arms here, but Ramo vouches for us and we're taken to see King Triton himself. But not before popping our next trophy, Undersea Civilization. Listening to Ramo and King Tenzin speak, Dave realises that the sea people have been investigating all the strange things that have been happening lately. Not just the mysterious tremors, the extra large kaijus and the more aggressive than ever wildlife, but even their own divine tree seems to be in trouble. It's melting. Ramo wanted to approach the humans for help, hence why she left the village, but the rest of the sea people, being naturally wary of our kind, don't want any of our help. So that means that we need to show these folks that I'm not such a bad guy once you get to know me. So we return the next day eager to help. We start with Mima, who is the resident chef, and asks that we drop off a couple of packed lunches. Easy. We then meet Kaz, a seed owner, who asks that we deliver some... These are all going to be delivery missions, aren't they? Back in the service we get our next VIP guest, and this guy is wanting a rice dish, which is a little hard to find when diving. Otto says to leave it with him and to meet him round the back again the next day. Before I chance another encounter with a strange man behind the back of a sushi bar again, I feed our troubled Maki her fave dish, breaking her vow of silence. She tells us that her dad went missing around these parts, and that she was hoping to find him, so she tasks us with finding her favourite fish, a Cleone. Now this girl might not have her priorities straight, but she does give us a butterfly net to finally catch some of those smaller fish that our harpoon would absolutely turn to mush if fired at. As promised, we meet Otto around the back again, and he shows us his best Stardew Valley skills by creating a small farm overnight. Here we can start growing some rice, ready for our VIP guests. Back to the village, and after a few days of deliveries and finding people's lost crap, the townsfolk finally trust me. We head back to Tenzin, who goes into a little bit more detail on the village's issues. The divine tree mentioned before is the source of all the energy in the village, but some unknown heat source coming from the glacial area beneath them is melting the ice and the tree. We agree to help, but first we need to be let into the glacial area, and wouldn't you know it, they've lost the key in an abandoned cave. Before we head out to the cave, however, we finish off a few little things that we were doing for Mima to get access to her dumplings, and to earn our next trophy, dumplings in the water. Now we can head off to the cave, and it ain't long before we run into trouble. You see, the ancient sea people have stories about their ancient sea people, and these guys are a lot more zombified than our friends back in the village. They also can't be hurt or captured and will one-shot you. So this game slowly became a pixel version of The Descent. We Sam Fisher our way through this nightmare, nab the key and escape by the skin of our teeth. We return with key in hand to have these zombie sea people explained. The Cliff Note version is this. They're called Godons, results of an old madman basically turning some sea people into his version of Nazi zombies, using the fruit from the divine tree. Now lucky for us, they were sealed away. Unlucky for us though, they were sealed away deep within the glacial area, the area that we're currently being tasked with entering and investigating. Danger aside, we head into the glacial passage, earning us our next trophy, a dark and cold place. The first thing we notice is that when we say the Godons were sealed away, they weren't kidding. There are a lot of contraptions here that stop us from heading in too far. We sneak and puzzle our way through until we come across a light puzzle. These mirrors are just too big for Dave to budge, so we make a quick detour back to the surface for a quick chat with Cobra, and then another detour back to the sunken ship to get my hands on the Golden Freeman Special. We take one final detour back to the sea village to speak with another resident, Gummo, who finally liked us enough to let us use his seaweed farm, earning us the Seaweed is Growing trophy. Finally, after all of that, we head back to the glacial cave, move the mirror with our trusty crowbar and head in deeper. Actually, scratch that. Sorry, one more detour, because I need to introduce you to another resident, Udo, a photographer for a local fishing magazine who we've been helping out by snapping a few pics in our dives. And upon snapping our 10th pic for him, we earn our photographer trophy. Okay, that's it for now, I swear, because it's finally time to head deeper. Here we find a lot more light puzzles we need to solve, no real issues here. That is until we reach a dark passage near the bottom of the area. We turn on the light to find a goddamn Godon kaiju, and it is on sight for my man here. He immediately starts smashing up the place and giving chase to us. And this chase is no joke, this Godon is relentless. Luckily, Dave's a lot more stamina and speed than you think for a man his size, because we managed to outrun this giant. After gaining that little bit of distance on him, we create a rock slide, crushing and defeating him for good. But it's not over yet. You see, there's one more issue. Dave may be a good diver, but he ain't the smartest of guys, because not once did he consider that an area with glacial in its name could get a tad bit cold. So, you guessed it, it's back up to the surface for another chat with Bacon. Bacon says that he needs some mechanical parts to patch me up a new suit, much like the ones found on Watson the last time I fought him. Oh, yeah, right, I forgot to mention, I had another fight with Watson after I left the abandoned caves with the glacial key. It was nothing, he was in a mech suit, we'll leave it there. Anyway, we now need to get our hands on a working mech part, and Cobra is a great idea on where we can find one, back at Watson's base. So we return in the dead of night and try and make Solid Snake proud by following a drone and sneaking into Watson's base. And speaking of Metal Gear, this whole place is full of references to that franchise, including our next trophy, as when we find some rations on the top floor and scoff them down, we earn Ration Eater. Not long after that, we find the part we're after and perform our daring escape back into the water. Dave truly is a badass. We hand the part over to Bacon, who tells us to give him a day to craft it. This day of waiting gives us the perfect opportunity to return back to the sea village and finish helping out some of the residents. This time it's Dua, the sickly local blacksmith. We've been helping him with his health, and upon this latest visit, he tells us that he is well enough to reopen his shop, earning us the Feeble Blacksmith trophy. Back on land, we decide to prepare for the dangers ahead by giving our guns some much needed upgrades, earning us the Arms Craftsman trophy. Now one more quick trophy before we turn in for the night, as lately we've been noticing that our bar cat, Momo, has been acting a bit odd and sneaking around the place, so we decide to investigate and follow him, only to discover that Momo has been knocking boots of a local stray, knocking them up. So we decide to bring the rest of the family home to the bar, earning us Momo's secret and giving us 2 more mouths to feed. The next morning we finally get our hands on our cold resistant suit and head back to the glacial area, this time going deep enough to earn our next trophy, Achu. We explore this massive area and quickly come across a sealed door and a stone slab with Sea People language written all over it. We snap a pic and send it to Bacon to decipher. Bacon does his best but says that he looks like some sort of spell, and that we should actually speak to the Sea People about it. We do just that and speak with the local librarian Nemo, who says that there are 3 seals in place to stop us from entering the Divine Tree, and not just that, but to gain entrance to these seals, we need to recite some ancient spells. Obviously, not being able to speak Sea People, we need someone to translate, so we bring Swam along. Heading back to the first sealed entrance, Swam gives us access, but other than that, he's absolutely useless, leaving us on our own to investigate further. We do that solving the puzzles until we came across the worst one, this ancient statue that I need to adjust to match the mural. Real simple sounding, I know, but the devs were just real sticklers here, as if the statue was so much as a nose hair out of place, it would just not work. I spent a good 10 minutes at this, at least, but it was worth it, as the first seal is now released. We head back to the village to find a distressed Ramo, who says that her precious beluga whale is missing. Fearing that he might have headed into the glacial area, she asks that we go and investigate, and sure enough, we find it there, but it looks to be in a bad way. We quickly see the culprit, a venomous Antarctic octopus. We give chase to the little shite, and it might be fast, but it ain't strong enough to beat a very strong current coming from a tunnel, trapping it. With nowhere left to run, it starts to cower. Pitying the poor creature, we let it go, and in kind it rewards us with dropping the antidote to its poison. We take that back to the beluga, heal it up and send it back to the village. Before calling it a night, I decide to take a small break and go fishing, with a sniper rifle. And upon catching my 10th fish, I earn Dave the Sniper. Returning to the tunnel the next day, we find our friendly beluga waiting for us. They offered to give us a beluga back ride through the current to the other side, and we happily accept. We ride through all sorts of quick forming ice, jellyfish and worse to make it to the end, where we find a kaiju jellyfish waiting for us. Now we may be quicker on our friend Baloo here, but we are vastly weaker. They can only take 3 hits, so it does take a few tries. We persevere however, letting us release Seal 2 and also cooling off more of the area, letting us dive a little bit deeper. We do just that and soon find the entrance to the 3rd and final seal, this time taking Swarm with us, giving us this cool little segment where we have to swap between the two to solve all the puzzles. We make it to the end to find one final obstacle in a way, a shark with a freaking saw blade attached to it. This was no trouble at all actually. The toughest part for me personally was that I was still using a sniper rifle for some weird reason, so I kept on running out of ammo and had to desperately swim around the place looking for something else. With the saw shark down, we released a final seal, giving us access to the Divine Tree. Well, not actually. The game just pulled a JK big prank on us, as the Divine Tree's roots have grown out of control, making it impossible to pass through them. The worst still is that John Watson decides to randomly appear for round 3. Well, not actually, as the game once again pulls a little JK big prank on me and kills John right away after he attracts the attention of a prehistoric Kronosaurus. Now this thing is a monster, and our weapons are doing jack to it. Luckily, the weapons from John's sub is still there, so we grab that and blast this mammoth, making him extinct once again. We're then joined by Bacon by his drone sub. Now this state of the art sub has absolutely everything that you need, including a nifty little laser cutter, just the right tool we need for getting past these routes. Bacon does say that it will still take some time however, a couple of days in fact, so we head back to the surface for some much needed rest. Actually, now I'm lying, I'm the one now pulling a big JK big prank on you guys. As back on the surface, we look to clear up a few trophies, starting with our Cookster one, as that night we finally earn a high enough ranking for Plat, earning us a Bancho Sushi regular. We then get a really easy one, as with 65 measly coins, I buy our first bit of decor for the bar, earning us the shops looking good. Break time's now over, as the next morning Bacon lets us know that the path is now clear. We can finally head down to the Divine Tree to see what's causing all these problems. We immediately dive down and it is looking messy down there. The sap from the Divine Tree seem to have mutated in some areas, making it very volatile. We start working our way past some puzzles and dangerous creatures, making it deeper and deeper until we find a room full of eggs that have been laid on the tree's branches. Now, I've seen Alien once or twice, so when these little hatchlings started popping out the eggs, I took no chances and started blasting. Now getting a sense of what actually might be causing the Divine Tree to mutate, we make our way deeper towards the core, only to have our fears realised when we find the hatchlings suckling on the tree's nucleus. Clearing them out brings an even bigger issue, the mama. Lucky for us, Bacon must have sensed danger and sent in the drone to help us fight. I did say that this thing did have a bunch of nifty features like a gun, the laser cutter, and the ability to slow down time, you know, just standard drone tech. Anyway, this Mama Yowie was no joke. She had multiple stages where she threw everything in the kitchen sink at you to win, and she did, a fair few times, I ain't gonna lie, but after a long, well fought battle, she found herself more stuck and covered in more sticky goo than all those step videos on the internet. We take advantage of this by loading up one more cannon shot and unleash it at Yowie, frying it and stabilising the Divine Tree. And that's it. Well, for the main story at the very least. So we still do have a fair few hellish trophies to go for, but before we touch upon them, we earn a peaceful blue hole. So let's just jump straight into hell with this next trophy. The credit sequence in Dave the Diver is a mini game in itself in which you swim about in space, shooting all the devs' names. Now for this trophy, all you need to do is shoot all 29 names before the credits end. Sounds easy enough. Well, no, because as you'll soon see, Dave the Diver hates anybody going for these trophies. What makes this so hard is just how little time you actually have here. I didn't time it exactly, but it is around the 2 to 3 minute mark. That would be okay if not for the fact that each name also takes multiple shots, at least 3, with some of the higher up devs taking even more than that, a lot more in fact. And this isn't a quick gun as well, oh no. And on top of that, we also have the space aliens that like to chase you, grab you, shoot you, or just generally be in the way of you and your shots. And speaking of shots, we also have the fact that the aiming in this game and the range of your shots are absolutely dog water. And lastly, the icing on the cake that is all this misery is that all the names are scattered, randomly just somewhere out there in space. So even if you are doing really well, you can spend precious seconds slowly swimming through empty space, finding absolutely nothing. All this amalgamates into an arduous, not well thought out, rage-inducing nightmare, and it is not the only trophy like this. But we'll get onto them later. Now I wish I could tell you how I did this. I wish I could give tips to anyone out there who wants to attempt this on their own. I can't. I spent a good 45 minutes throwing myself into attempt after attempt after attempt to beat this, until it finally happened. Luck was just on my side, and I finally earned Dev Killer. I decided to move on to some much easier tasks next, for my own sanity's sake. Throughout the game you can find more guns, and each time you find them, Duff can slowly build up a blueprint on how to craft them. Well, for finding enough of every weapon and getting my final blueprint, I earn Weapon Collector. I then head back to Doer at the village to sell some of my gathered materials, 200 to be exact, earning me the Blacksmith Helper trophy. I then move on to some kaiju fighting, as there are still some mini bosses out there, and upon fighting my last one, I earn Creature Hunter. I then fully upgrade my farm and rice fields for Professional Farmer, my wonderful rice field, and my wonderful field. I also research enough dishes to earn Artisan's Flame, and speaking of the bar, it does so well that we impress an old enemy of Banjo's, who then offers to expand the bar into a business. Upon opening our new branch nearby, we earn the Manager Trophy. Now, I know these trophies have been coming thick and fast, but I do need to slow down a bit and explain everything that I've been doing in the background of this entire playthrough. As I've mentioned, there's a fair bit of RNG related to a few trophies in this game. I've already touched upon one with the Dev Killer, but let's get into the real hellish ones. We'll start off tame with Momo. You see, being a responsible cat owner, I need to keep Momo and his new family nice and fed. Well, that should be easy, right? We're in a sushi bar. These feline friends have all the fish they can eat. Well, no. These cats are like the opposite of bougie. They don't like the finer things. They like cat food. Just regular, out the tin cat food. And where do we find cat food? Well, in random food boxes scattered throughout the ocean, of course. I've been opening up these food boxes all game, and by the time I'd completed the main story and was going for these last trophies, I still had 7 more to find. So that's what I did. Hours upon hours of diving and opening up undersea pots until finally I had enough to feed Momo and the family a 20th time, earning me the Catman trophy. It was also around this time that the bar reached the highest rank it can get on Cookster, earning me the Cookster Influencer trophy. We had also earned enough money to train one of my employees to level 20, earning the Leadership trophy. But now we can get to the very bane of my existence. And anybody who has tried to go for all the trophies in this game knows exactly what I'm about to talk about. You see, in the glacial area, there's a very small chance that you'll see a very familiar hammer encased in a block of ice. We need to prove ourselves worthy by finding said block and catching a fish with this newly acquired hammer. Easy enough on paper, but when I say very small chance, I mean it. You'll have an easier time getting a text back from your crush than finding this thing. And the worst part is that nobody online can even agree where you can find the bloody thing. People say that they found it searching the first cave where we released our first seal. Other people swear they found it in the maze where you helped the beluga. Some say that it needs to be stormy weather for you to find it. Some say that you need to find it on a certain day. It was a mess. And let me tell you, I tried it all. I looped every cave, every ledge, every nook and cranny of this giant open area for hours, and I do mean hours. I was going for this trophy since the first time I stepped foot in this area. I made my millions capturing the same fish down here whilst I was looking for the hammer. I was looking for the hammer whilst I was also looking for the cat food down here. And still, after all those other trophies were done, I hadn't found it. This was, no joke, 5+ hours of looking. Probably a lot more than that, come to think of it. This was agony. But just as I was about to detour into something else, it finally happened. I finally found it. I cracked it open and unleashed a godly fury on any fish that I could, finally earning me the God of Lightning trophy. Luckily, these final trophies aren't as grueling as that weak excuse for Miona. It is smooth sailing from here on out. So let's start by heading back to Glacial area, but not deep enough that it triggers my PTSD flashbacks. We're sticking to the opening area this time, as throughout all these caves and murals of the ancient sea people, and as any good tourist would do, we've been snapping pics of them all but one, as we did get a little bit sidelined before with that giant Gadon, but with him taking a snooze under a rock slide right now, I was free to return here, snap the final pic, earning us Sea People Historian. Now I have to introduce you to one final resident, Sato, a Pokemon stand-in who for the most part has just been asking that I keep capturing fish, as every new one that I catch becomes a card, and he wants to, you've guessed it, look at them all. But later in the game he introduces you to a new minigame, Gyao, which is just a Tamagotchi. You feed your pet, you play with it, you clean it, you know, just raise it. And after raising 5 of these digital monsters, we earn Gyao Master. Also, quite late into the game, after showing enough of your skills to Udo, he starts asking that you find and capture really rare, one-of-a-kind fish. Fishmon, as he called it, named after his and Sato's favourite show, Digimon. Now you can only do this once a week, and after capturing my 5th one, I earned Strange Fish, and also the Plat. And that's it for Dave the Diver. And I have to admit, I was surprisingly let down by this game. I went into this with a fair amount of hype, and I left it with a lot more personal gripes than praises. I found the gameplay loop to get very tedious very quickly, and not in a relaxing way. It just never felt good to me to catch these fish. I also found that the pacing annoyed me sometimes. I really disliked the amount of times the story would just come to a halt for you to come to the surface, to be handed an item you need, to then return back to the story. I think the gloves and the crowbar were the worst examples of this happening. I also think that the final nail in the coffin for me personally was the RNG. I mean, you heard how long it took me to find Miona alone. Do I really need to go into detail? What might come as a surprise to you though, is that I still do highly recommend this game. Weird, I know, but I can just tell that my own hang-ups about it are very personal. This is still a very solid game, with a lot of heart, a great pixelized art style that I do love. There are still so many positives here that I would encourage you all to go and check it out for yourselves. Just don't go for the Plat. And there we have it, Dave the Diver is successfully plied. Thank you all for making it this far. Please do comment below about the game. How's your own experiences with it? Did you go for the Plat yourself? How did you find the RNG? Should I give it another attempt? Please do keep the conversation going. I'd love to hear all your opinions. This is my first ever video. I do have a lot more in the pipeline, so if you did enjoy your time here, please do drop a like, please do sub. It all helps with the algorithm and all the YouTube type things, and it'll keep you up to date whenever a new video drops in the future. Until then, thank you all, take care, until next time.